I'm Richard Ramos, author and founder of Parents on a Mission. And today I'm going to continue on with this teaching series, giving you a taste and an understanding of what Parents on a Mission is all about. And as I said last time, I'm excited about this new product that I'm going to be launching real soon. And I want to give you a taste of some of the material and some of the things that you're going to be learning, the principles that we teach in Parents on a Mission. So as I said last time, what I want to talk about now is parent authority and discipline. And remember, Mom and Dad, what I said last time. Please remember this. You cannot be replaced. More police, more programs are never going to replace you. But one of the big problems that we have is that parents struggle with this issue of their authority. But let me tell you something. You are the authority in your children's lives. And we need to stop deferring our authority to the courts and to the schools and to the principals and to the police and everybody else. We need to stop giving our authority away and letting other people take over the lives of our children and make decisions for them. Now, of course, if our kids are getting in trouble all the time, that's exactly what's going to happen. Then we're going to give away our authority to these other people because they have to do their job if our kids are out of line. But what we're encouraging in Parents on a Mission is that parents stop giving their authority away, that we are the final authority in the lives of our children, that we know what's best for them, that we're making the decisions, that we are exercising our authority through the proper use of discipline. And that's what this subject, the subject of this teaching is about. Now, what I want to show you first here this is a study that was done to discover what the top risk factors for children joining gangs are. They took 20 studies. I believe this study was done by Malcolm Klein and Cheryl Maxson. And they studied 20 different studies, and they put it all together, and they came up with the top risk factors for kids who join gangs. Number one was who your kids hang around with or their peers. Second was a lack of supervision by parents. The third was when kids are being aggressive, or I just call it bullying. Actually, these are my words, but they're the same thing that they came up with. Bullying. Kids, if you see kids bullying other kids and aggressive, that's a sign to be concerned about. Then negative life events. Kids who live in homes where there's negative life events, divorces, death, abuse, maybe drugs, maybe their parents are in gangs, things like that. Negative life events. Then a kid's attitude towards delinquency. If they just laugh it off and they don't take anything serious, those kinds of things. And then last was a cumulative effect of one or more of these 5 things in the lives of kids, of young kids. And so those become the risk factors to look for. But what I want to draw your attention to is the conclusion of this study. Listen, we've learned a lot about risk factors for joining gangs, but there is work yet to be done. The most frequent conclusion is inconclusive. Our ultimate goal was to inform the development of programs that could increase protection by buffering risk-laden youth. Our results were not encouraging. Now, I respect researchers, but in this case, I just have to respectfully disagree with this conclusion. And it's just an unacceptable conclusion because, to me, these top risk factors are simply, again, point to a lack of parental authority. I mean, would you agree with that? Let's look at them again. I mean, who my kids hang around with. Isn't that a matter of my discipline and my authority to say who they will and won't hang around with? Now, I know that when kids get a little older, you can't completely control, but when kids are little and as they're growing up, even as long as they're living in your house? Isn't it really a matter of parents deciding how much and who they're going to hang around with most of the time? I think it is. And then secondly, a lack of supervision by parents. Well, that speaks for itself. See, that has to do with when the accountability is on the parent towards the kid. I mean, we want our kids to be accountable to us, but we also have to be accountable to them. In other words, we can't just be showing up every night at 10 o'clock at night or midnight or not coming home at night, or our kids don't know where we're at or where their next meal is coming from, things like that. So a lack of parental supervision, again, that points to the lack of parent authority. Then bullying. Well, if my kid is caught or involved in bullying other kids, isn't that a matter of discipline? Isn't that something that the principal or the school or the teen center or the pool or the park ought to be able to call me and say, hey, your kid's over here bullying these kids? Again, it's a matter of me exercising my authority and disciplining my child for that kind of behavior. Then a negative life events. Well, again, it's not necessarily has to do with authority, but it speaks to who's running the house. You know, what's going on in our home. I mean, if it's an unavoidable tragedy, that's different. But when there are other kind of abuses and things going on, again, that's an abuse of authority, and again speaks to the parents. Then fifth, attitude towards delinquency. Well, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, a kid's attitude towards delinquency is picked up by the attitude their parents have. The reason I know that is because I've dealt with kids like this many times. And when I called their parents on it, their parents sat there and defended their child's delinquent behavior and didn't believe that they were that bad and were telling me that I was picking on their kids, or I sat there and heard them tell the principal that he was racist and he just didn't like their kid, on and on and on and on. Well, again, if a child has a negative attitude towards delinquent behavior, I think it's something, again, that we can look to the parents and what's going on there, in what kind of example they're setting. And so, again, I think that our answer to the development of programs that could increase protection for at-risk youth is that we need to focus on the behavior of the parents, on the authority and discipline of the parents, more than the delinquent behavior of the children. I mean, to me, there's just too much focus on the behavior of children and not enough on the behavior of parents. I mean, most of the, these studies and programs and everything's focused on the behavior of youth. And a lot of times the reason we're not coming up with conclusions and solutions is because there's no focus on the behavior of the parents where those youth are coming from. So I think it's really, really important. Now, when it comes to discipline, what we're finding is that most parents struggle between two things: being too strict or being too permissive. I mean, sometimes there can just be a tough balance to strike. Too much strictness or too much permissive, just letting them kind of do whatever they want to do. So what we teach, the skill and wisdom of Parents on a Mission, is we teach the skill of what I call just enough. And the metaphor I use for that is, if you just think of a musician who's tuning his guitar, if you pull the string too tight, what happens? It breaks. If you don't tighten it enough, then it's out of tune. And so the musician has to learn how to tighten that string just enough, how to fine-tune it just enough so you get the best performance out of that instrument. It's the same thing with children. Discipline is about the skill of just enough. Not too strict, not too permissive, fine-tune to each individual child just enough. Now, and so the wisdom of this is in 3 principles. Number 1, when I'm disciplining my children, the question I need to ask myself is, will my child learn and want to do better from what I'm going to do? That takes thought. That takes emotional maturity. Okay? But that's the question I need to ask myself. Will my child want to learn and do better based on the discipline I'm going to exercise right now? Second, we understand this because the word discipline means to teach, okay, which is different than punishment. See, punishment is about revenge, really, mostly. Discipline is about teaching and learning. Okay, so we are seeking a cure. Okay, discipline is not about winning. It's not about, who's winning the argument, who's winning here. Who's winning in this relationship? That's not what we want. We're looking for a cure. We're looking to teach. We're looking to help through the discipline that we are using. And then the third part of discipline is knowing. This has to do with knowing each of our children's different personalities. Sometimes a certain form of discipline can be applied to, all your children. But that's not always true. Because for one child, it's a shrug of the shoulders and, okay, Dad, whatever. For another child, that same discipline is heavy for them. And they're not processing that well. And so it helps when we, as parents, we know the uniqueness and the development and the different stages and personality of each one of our children. There's wisdom in that also when you're disciplining each child. Okay? So that's the wisdom and the skill of just enough. So also what we teach, the principles we teach is early, consistent, and OCNE. Now what I mean by early is that with small children, and those of you who are listening to this who have small children, please pay attention. I cannot emphasize this enough. But with small children, we must exercise our discipline and teach them to obey our authority, respect, and obey us as early and as often as possible. This happens constantly and consistently, especially from those years from 2 to 5, like we talked about last time. As early as possible, and it starts around 2 years old, where we start using that real powerful word that our kids hate to obey, no. And as early as possible, we have to start subjecting their will. We have to start, as Dr. Dobson calls it, we have to start bending their will without breaking their spirit. I call it just enough. But that's what the discipline is all about. No. And then they resist. And so we've got to bring them into obedience to that no, as early and as often as possible. Okay? And that's where parents make a huge mistake when that doesn't happen. Okay? And then secondly is that we have to be consistent. Being a parent is hard work. What can I say? And there isn't anything, again, let me say it again, I say this all the time, but I think it bears repeating. There's nothing I'm saying that's new to you. There isn't anything I'm telling you that you're saying, wow, I've never heard that before. It's not about what we know. It's about what we do. You know that saying about those who can read but don't read are no different than those who can't read. Let me say it again. If you can read but you don't read, you're no different from those who can't read. And it's the same when you say, well, I already know that, but if you know that and you don't do that, you don't know that. Okay? And so with discipline and this issue of teaching our children to obey our authority through discipline, it's got to be consistent. We have to be consistent, and it gets tiring. We get worn out. emotionally drained, etc. That's why single parents have such a tough job when they have small kids, because all of this responsibility is on them, and it's really hard. I know I've done it. I've been a single parent. I know what that's like, and it's hard. So my heart goes out to you, but nevertheless, you can do it. I came from a single parent home. My mother raised 5 children in a gang-infested area, and she did a pretty good job. But when we had our days and our years, but we eventually came back to the discipline and the authority that she instilled in us, even though we went off track for a while. And then finally, the OCNE stands for outward conformity is not enough. Outward conformity is not enough. And what this has to do is with a lot of times when parents say no to their kids, and then they tell them to do something, say, well, can I go over here? No, you can't go, but I need you to do these house chores. And then as they do the house chores, they have a long face, and they're kicking the dog and slamming doors and talking, bad to their little brothers and sisters. They have an attitude. And so now what happens a lot of times is parents, they ignore the attitude because they're getting the outward conformity. That's a big mistake. I mean, you can see right down here where I say, avoid the 2 big mistakes. And the 2 big mistakes parents make with small children is they don't teach them how to accept no for an answer early and often, and they don't teach them how to accept no for an answer without an attitude. See, if my kid accepts my no for an answer but has an attitude, he's still under discipline, because that attitude is going to have to change. That attitude has got to go. So the outward conformity, he might be doing what I told him to do, or he might be doing or not doing what I told him not to do. But if he has that big, ugly attitude, then you know what? The game is still on. The game's not over. Until I get that I'm sorry, that, repentant, that heartfelt apology and recognition by him or her, acknowledging that what they've done is wrong, acknowledging that what I'm doing is right as their parent, now I'm not only getting the outward conformity of obedience, I'm getting an inward conformity of obedience. And that is where the loyalty lies. That is where the key is at. That's where the gold's at. And a lot of parents make those big mistakes. They let their kids get away. When they say no, the kid says, she doesn't mean it, and that the kid is right. And or they accept the no, but inside, it's like that little kid in church who the dad kept saying, you better sit down, I'm going to spank you, better sit down, I'm going to spank you, better sit down, or we're going to go outside. And sure enough, finally, he gave him that look, and the kid looked at him, and he sat down real slow, and then he looked at his dad, and he said, I might be sitting down on the outside, but on the inside, I'm still standing up. You know any kids like that? Well, listen, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope it's been helpful to you, encouraging to you. Parents, you and I cannot be replaced. Gang prevention is a matter of raising children who are happy and healthy and who obey their parents' authority. And that's what Parents on a Mission is about. It's about leadership, because good leadership in the home is what creates safe communities. I'm Richard Ramos. I thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.